Sometimes you'll be like at a rock concert and the band will be playing like something new, and damn it, you just want the greatest hits. Hey, what's up, bookworms? Mike back today to talk a little science fiction, that little genre we all know and love at this point. It's a genre that's been going long before I was here, and it'll be a genre, I'm sure, that will still be going far past my time on this planet. But you know what? Maybe some of that speculative fiction won't be so speculative anymore. So guys, what this is going to be today is talking about not exactly just science fiction books or series that I want to read, but looking at some of the most popular books out there that I haven't read yet, and I think I owe it to myself to do so. So these have been on my radar forever. I've just never really kind of gotten to. I'm going to say, look, I've read the big ones. I've read Dune, Ender's Game, Hyperion, Martian Chronicles. I've read Heinlein, things like that. I've read a lot of the big ones, so if I don't mention them here, I've probably already read them. Hit my archives, and you'll see that I probably have read them, but I'm not saying I'm hitting everything here. These are just a handful of ones that I think I would like to read, and they are very, very popular. Now, it isn't going to be just, oldies. It isn't going to be just new stuff. I got a nice mix. I got stuff all the way from the 1930s to, the last couple of years. So it's just things I feel like are very, very popular and that you've heard of this. Or if you are into the science fiction genre, you've heard of these books. So it won't be anything like that. These are not in any particular order. I'm just going to put them out there by release here. So get ready for your, oh my God, you haven't read that, because it's going to come up a lot, I think, in this video. Let's begin, guys, back in 1932 with Aldous Huxley. This is Brave New World. Now, I think most people know this dystopian future society where they use technology and medicine as a way to control the citizens, but the state to control the citizens. So it's kind of one of those things. You can talk all the allegories that you want to find of it. I've seen people talk about, it's a message against this, it's a message against that. I think that the politics of the world were very, very different almost 100 years ago. So trying to put all those things into a modern light, you can probably move those field goal posts any way that you want. But whenever you deal with the science fiction genre, you're going to get people saying, oh, they were trying to say this. And 9 times out of 10, you'd talk to the author and they're like, no, I was just writing a science fiction story. But, those things are there if you are looking for them. And Brave New World is much like 1984 and Fahrenheit 51 that people have always said, like, our world is more moving towards this. Every generation has said that with these things. And Brave New World is, those big 3 there that I named there. That's the one that I haven't read yet. And I think I do owe it to myself to check that one out. Next up, guys, I've never read Isaac Asimov. And I know that most people are going to say, well, you've got to read Foundation. I have always wanted to read I, Robot, 1950. This is the one that I've kind of wanted to start with because the very, very famous age-old tale at this point about, getting too reliant on AI and using robotics as replacements for humans and things like that. That's obviously a bad plan, and I believe that this is kind of one of the places that it really, really gained popularity from was the writings of Isaac Asimov. So I, Robot is a story, I feel like has been told a million times from different people. So I'd like to go back and see how it was told by the man himself. And I feel like, again, I must say I feel like I owe it to myself with all of these really, but Isaac Asimov is one I'm really just kind of embarrassed at this point to say I've never actually read before. Foundation, why did I put that one off is because I'm watching the series on Apple TV, and I know that everybody says it is nothing like the book, and I don't want to ruin that series for me. So I'm going to wait until that series on Apple TV is over, and then I will read Foundation. So I'm going to start with iRobot for sure. And, a lot of people, guys, watch Battlestar Galactica. Those warnings are all there. All these people are real excited about AI right now. I mean, they've been telling us this, guys, for, 80 years. Don't do this. Don't do this. Number 3, this one comes from recommendations a lot. Now, most of these are going to be books that, you feel like you've heard of before. But then I get a lot of recommendations, and I'm like, I kind of heard of that, but I didn't really gave much interest in reading to it until I learned what it was about. And a big one there is Canticle for Leibowitz by Walter M. Miller Jr. This is from 1959. This is the first post-apocalyptic one on here. It's about a group of monks trying to preserve scientific knowledge, after all the paper records have kind of been, burned away from a nuclear holocaust. So this is after World War III, and you've got all these different territories and things like that I've heard he does kind of go all over the place with. It's supposed to be very, very deep with the world building in this. And I have never seen that. Most post-apocalyptic books are just, it's a wasteland. Yeah, it's a wasteland. Yeah, it's a wasteland. Or familiar city that here's what it looks like now. So if this has actually got some of those world building elements into it after the event, after the nuclear event, that sounds very, very interesting. And obviously trying to reserve that knowledge for, if we are going to try to come back from this, we would need to have some of that scientific knowledge there for our next and next and next generations if we want to keep the human race going. So that might not be an accurate description. Again, guys, with these, I haven't read them. I don't know if these are accurate descriptions, just kind of what you can get off of a simple non-spoiler synopses. Number 4, Flowers for Algernon. This is by Daniel Keyes in 1966. This one has been recommended to me to a ton. And I feel like I'm kind of familiar with what the story is. I think that they do like these tests on a mouse that like raise its IQ. And so they want to find like a low IQ or a simple human and try these tests on that person, and it works. But then what happens? It kind of works from there. What is the problem? What is the what is the trade-off for this? If this is going to work, obviously got a one-shot cure, and now everybody's a genius. What is the fallback from this? There's got to be something that you give up to gain that kind of power, right? I think that's the kind of things that it is playing with. And I think somebody said it comes back to the mouse somehow. So I'll be interested to see how that works. I've heard a lot of people say that's one of the books when I did my books that made them cry. Flowers for Algernon was a lot of the answers on there was that this book was the one that made them cry. So I love classics. So for most part, I'd say probably 5 out of every 6 classics I like, I really do say, okay, I can see why this is a classic. So I'm pretty sure I'll like most of these. Number 5, this is a big one here. I read Childhood's End about 2 years ago, and I loved it. It's not just one of the best science fiction books of all time. It's one of my favorite books I've ever read. Just the ideas that Arthur C. Clarke put forward in that book were just like wow, that's just amazing, amazing stuff. So I said I wanted to read more of him. So what's his biggest book I haven't read? 2001, A Space Odyssey. A movie I've watched a couple times, and I'm not going to lie to it, a lot of it's like, so I don't know if the book's any clearer or whatever, but I know it follows humanity from the primitive stages all the way through the stars and what we could be as the human race. So a lot of that 1950s sci-fi, or 1950s to 60s sci-fi or 50s sci-fi was all about the Red Scare and atomic war, and the 60s started getting a little bit more about why are we here, where are we going, and stuff like that. And I think that's what 2001 kind of did help usher in, and the movie coming out right after that obviously put this one into infamy forever. So I definitely feel like I'd love to get into this one, especially, like I said, after Childhood's End. I just wanted to read more Clarke because apparently that guy was very, very intelligent. Number 6, this is a big one, guys. I haven't gotten enough dick when it comes to science fiction. Philip K. Dick, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Now, I think by now, most of us know this as a story that became Blade Runner, but I do know that the movie Blade Runner did take some liberties, obviously. This book isn't that long, I don't believe, and there are a lot of things, like you'll never hear the phrase Blade Runner in this book, apparently. But, Bounty Hunter has to track down these escape androids that are apparently very dangerous. Maybe they've kind of outlived their expiration date. And so they flee because, they want to live. That's how smart the androids have gotten in the future, and apparently they will do anything to do so, including kill humans. And that's a big no-no. So Deckard has to go out and kind of hunt these things down and kind of do a journey of self-discovery while he is doing that. So again, Philip K. Dick, I wanted to read this or The Man in the High Castle. This is the one that I kind of went with, but I'm hoping that I like Philip K. Dick because, again, the guy is synonymous with the science fiction genre, right? So that would be like saying I didn't like Asimov. It's like saying you don't like Asimov, or R.C. Clarke would be like saying you don't like Philip K. Dick. So I want to read more of those 3 particular authors right there, so I do know if they are authors for me. Number 7, The Forever War by Joe Haldeman. This is 1974. I forget who recommended this one to me. I had kind of heard of it forever, didn't really know it was a science fiction book, but apparently it is, kind of an allegory for the Vietnam War, which was coming to a close at the time. So the draft in the United States was a big deal for my viewers who are not in the United States. During the Vietnam conflict in the United States, we didn't have enough people that were volunteering for the war, so we just created this thing called the draft. And basically, if your name got pulled, you had to go or you went to prison. So make your choice. So I felt like there was obviously going to be a lot of science fiction writing about that at the time in an allegorical way. And he does with this. Humans are kind of drafted into this interstellar war, billions of light years away from Earth. That apparently this war has been raging for like 1,000 years. They don't know anything about it or whatever. But obviously the people are going against their will. So I think, I don't know if was this that Chris Pratt movie that was on Amazon Prime Video? Was it an adaptation of this? I don't even know. I don't even think, was it called The Forever War? I don't even remember. I don't know. I should check that out before I record these videos. Not wild them, but that's what it kind of does sound like. This does kind of sound like the same synopsis there. But yeah, sounds very, very cool. And I've heard really, really great things about it. Had a lot of recommendations for it, just like I have for the next one, guys. Didn't think I'd make it through this list with just novels, did you? I do have a manga on here, and I've got to talk about number 8, which is Akira by Katsuhiro Otomo. This is 1982, guys. I feel like everyone who knows anything about anime or manga and has at least heard of Akira. I've said that this was one that I wanted to read for a while now. So I wanted to finish Berserk, and then I wanted to finish Vinland Saga, and then people picked for me to do 20th Century Boys. But Akira would be the one that I do if I decide to step into the science fiction genre. What I know about this is like a military project goes wrong. I think like an atomic bomb goes off in Tokyo. And so it gives certain people, like basically it gives like a psychopath like these telekinetic powers, and he decides to start a rebellion against their government who did, these military tests or whatever. So that might be all wrong. Again, that's kind of what I've kind of gathered. What I know about this is Motorcycle Slide. Everything has kind of taken that as an influence. That's what I know about this up to this point. But I wanted to kind of have one on here that was a manga or a comic, and Akira was the one that I kept flipping back to, because I don't think Neon Evangelist, whatever, is going to be my thing. I watched Ghost in the Shell, didn't really dig it. So, yeah, I think that Akira is going to be the one that I want to give a shot. Next up, guys, basically the book that created the cyberpunk genre. This is Neuromancer by William Gibson, 1984. This is one of those books that people... Half of my audience tells me you're going to love it, and the other half tells me, oh man, you're going to hate it. So I don't know what to expect with this one. But what I have always heard is that this book was basically the primary influence for The Matrix. And so when I read the synopsis of this, I was like, yeah, clearly, data thieves. They decide to pull off like a big heist, a big hack, in a cyberspace created world known as The Matrix. So... yeah, that sounds very, very familiar. So, yeah, again, a book that has the legacy that it does. I would imagine that is going to influence filmmakers. And the timeline does kind of actually pull forward a little bit. This came out in 84, Matrix came out in 89. The Wachowskis might have read this when they were much younger and said, yeah, we've got to find a way to get that on film. Because I'd always been told Neuromancer and Ghost in the Shell was basically just... and Tron was kind of like the things that like they mashed up to make The Matrix. And I was always like, whatever, So it'd be fun to go back now and find out. But I have all 4 of the Neuromancer books. Or I think it's 3 in like a collection. I don't know. Anyway, I have 4 books by William Gibson over there that are all in the same universe. I don't know how that series works, but Neuromancer obviously is the one that I would definitely like to try first. Number 10, Contact. Carl Sagan, 1985. Look, the only books I've ever read by Carl Sagan have been nonfiction. I think in college I took 2 years of astrophysics and we read Cosmos and something else was a pale blue dot. I can't remember what it was, but it was like, you could have maybe called it a science fiction novel, but it was very much just based on, scientific findings and things like that. With Contact, I know it is, a science fiction story about, scientists who are using like radio signals to try to make first contact with an alien species, prove that we're not alone. I remember the movie was really popular when I was in high school. Never saw it or whatever. But at the time I was like, I'm not really big, sci-fi stuff except Michael Crichton, and Crichton's great. But Sagan is again one of the smartest people I think who've ever lived. So I would love to see him taking a swing at some science fiction. Number 11, kind of moving through the years here. This is 1992. This is Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson. Another one of those books that people tell me, or half my audience says I'll love and the other half says I'll hate. And I think this is just a very divisive book overall, because I will find reviews for it where people will absolutely just be gushing about it and other people are just like completely shredding it. So I don't know. I don't know where I'm going to fall with this book, but I do know that the more and more I hear about it, I'm like, did Ready Player One completely rip this book off? Now, look, I'm going off the synopsis. It's a hacker bouncing between the real world, where resources are depleted and it's kind of, dystopian. Or then you got the VR world that they like to spend most of their time in. And the more and more I read about the synopsis, I'm like, that sounds very, very much like Ready Player One, to a point where I'm like, did Ready Player One just completely rip this off? I don't know. I'll have to read it and find out. But Stevenson has been an author that's been on my radar for a minute, and that's completely solely off of your recommendations. And I actually do own that nice deluxe edition of Snow Crash, so I would definitely be doing this one sooner rather than later. This one might be the first one on here that people might say, oh, I don't think you can call that one, super, super popular. I mean, I think it's sold like 1 million copies, so I'm going to go ahead and count it. This is Metro 2023 by Dmitry Glukhovsky. Hope I'm saying that right. This came out in 2002. I actually found out about this after playing the video games. It was one of those things where I was like, oh, they made books based off the game? I was like, no, dude, other way around. I was thinking it was like Halo, where they just started writing books because the Halo games were so popular. But surviving in the Moscow subways after a nuclear event, and there might be something a little supernaturally going on, or it's zombies. Not really sure. Based off the synopsis, I don't want to tell you too much if you haven't at least played the video game, which is very good, by the way. You definitely check out the game. I like them. I'm kind of over the first-person shooter thing, but that was a lot of fun. It really had some good, creepy ambiance. But yeah, I do have, I think, 3 of them. I think it's 3 books on my Kindle. And yeah, I'm always interested to see a post-apocalyptic story not set in America. That sounds like a lot of fun to just see, how other parts of the world would kind of be approaching something like this. So that's super, super interesting to me. I can't get enough of post-apocalyptic guys. That's something that I'll always love. And then after The Stand and after Swan Song. Yeah, I've been itching for something like this since I finished Swan Song. So hopefully this can be it. Number 13, going to 2004 here. This is Pandora's Star by Peter F. Hamilton. I know a lot of people wanted me to read, is it New Dawn? Dawn something? Anyway, those big old fat boys. I said, why don't I start with these? Pandora's Star sounds like the one that's going to work the best for me. There are several people on my Discord who love Peter F. Hamilton. They've said they think that Pandora's Star is the best place for me to start. I know what this one is. We have gotten to the point where we're really, really close to making a faster than light starcraft. At the time, an astronomer witnesses a star disappear. Now, wormhole travel apparently is prevalent this time, but it's like too far for our chartered wormholes to travel to it. So when this ship is getting completed, we're going to fly out there interstellar and try to find out what happened to the star that just disappeared. So sure, sounds like a nice, fun little mystery / exploration tale. And last up, guys, you might know this because it did win my poll I did, about 6-7 months ago. I did this, not really a poll, but I asked viewers, what book do you think that I should try after I finish The Expanse? What sci-fi book? And it was a runaway smash. It was going to be Children in Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is 2015, the most recent book that I have on here. And with this one, I just know it's that Earth has become inhabitable, and we have found a suitable replacement, but we don't know nothing about it. So we found a habitable planet, with a that's warm and cool enough with the sun, far away from the sun, so that we can actually go there and live. But we don't really know what's on the planet or what conditions are going to be like when we get there. And I don't know if this is just about the travel journey there, or if it's about getting there and trying to survive. Don't know much about it. But I know it's super, super popular. And Tchaikovsky is just one of those authors who seems to put out a book every month, so it's hard for me to keep up. And I've never actually read any of them, and I think that this is the best place for me to start, because with all these guys, I'm just trying to get more sci-fi in my life, because I recently, like I said, I am reading The Expanse right now, and I did my book of the month for July, and there was an Expanse book, was my book of the month, and I was just like, I love that so much. I'm just like, gosh, had that same feeling, and I'm not comparing Nemesis games to Childhood's End, but I had that same feeling after Childhood's End, like, man, I just want to read more science fiction. That's kind of where I'm at right now. So that's what kind of inspired me to make this list. I know that none of these books really are anything that is being like, oh, I've never heard of that before. Let me really check that out. If you're into that community at all, the sci-fi community. But it's just, these are books I'm saying I would like to really give these a shot, because, I've read several since the first time I made a video like this, but I want to make sure that I kind of keep updating that list off of my likes and dislikes. And these all sound like ones that I think I could find something that I really do enjoy about them. So guys, did I miss anything? Anything that I didn't talk about? If I haven't read it, hey, maybe I'll add it to this list. That's how I found out about several of these. Obviously, these are super popular, so I'd at least heard of almost all these before I started this channel, but there are a few, like the Forever War, that I just kind of snuck up out of nowhere before I realized how popular they really, really were. So drop in the comments, guys. Let me know if you've read any of these, what you think about them, and I will talk to you there.